Hello, I'm Susie Newhan from Birkbeck, and I'm going to be showing you how to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. Okay, we're going to start by solving this quadratic. How do we know it's a quadratic? We know it's a quadratic because there's a variable here with a power of 2. If this x had a power of 3, we wouldn't call it a quadratic, we'd call it a cubic because the highest power was 3. So we're always interested in the highest power, and here it is 2, therefore it's a quadratic. It's simple as that. Now, first thing we need to know is that every quadratic is considered to be of this form. So our task here is to think for this particular equation what these values of a, b and c are. So we can see that b is the number in front of the x, so it's 5. We can see that c is the plus number on the end. And so the question is, what's a? Now, it's tempting to say that a is 0, isn't it? But it isn't, because that would be 0 times x squared, 0. There's actually an invisible 1 there. You could think of every number having an invisible 1 in front of it. But there it is. There's just one lot of x squared. So once we've worked out a, b and c, we can then revert to the quadratic equation, which you quickly learn, actually, even though you don't intend to. Okay, so you see it's a combination of those letters, and we're just going to substitute the values in for that. So minus b, that minus is very, very important. Minus b, so I'm going to put minus 5. Plus or minus, well, what's that about? That's telling us there's going to be 2 solutions. One where this funny symbol is positive, and one when it's negative. Every quadratic equation has 2 solutions, and that's where the 2 come from. So b is 5, and then it's 4 times a times c. Remember, in algebra, when you see something like 4ac, there's always these invisible multiplications inside, in between them. Yeah, any 2 things written next to each other always have an invisible multiplication sign. So it's simply 4 times a times c. Right, so let's keep simplifying this. Plus or minus 5 squared is 25. Minus 4 times 1 times 6 is 24. So you can see why I'm not reverting to the calculator in this particular question. Oops, 2a is 2 times 1 because a is 1. So I've got x equals minus 5. Now I'm going to start with the plus. So here we diverge a little bit. Plus 25 minus 1, 25 minus 24 is 1, so what we're looking for is the square root of 1, and the square root of 1 is 1. If in doubt, check your calculator, but it's 1 because 1 times 1 is 1. So we got minus 5 plus 1, which is minus 4 over 2, which is minus 2. In a fraction, if the top or the bottom is negative, the whole fraction is negative. If they're both negative, then it becomes positive. Okay, so there's one solution, but there's always 2 solutions in a quadratic. So we get the other solution by going back to this funny symbol and make it a minus. So that's now becoming minus. So we don't need to write all that out again. We know we're going to end up with the square root of 1 again. And here's our second solution. This time it's minus 6 over 2 minus 3. 2 solutions, always 2 solutions for a quadratic. Okay, so now let's say we want to solve this equation. We'll go a bit quicker this time. Remember, every quadratic equation has this format. So a is again 1. There's one lot of x squared. B, we now have to be very careful of, because b is not 2, it is minus 2. We have to take the sign with it. And we have to see that c is not 15, but it's minus 15. So let's go straight to the equation. plus or minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So minus b, you can see why we have to be very careful now, because we're going to put minus, because there's a minus there, and another minus because b is already negative. Plus or minus. Now, we can be a little less careful with this sign. We've got to square minus 2, which will end up being positive anyway. Minus 4 times 1 times minus 15. See, I'm putting it in brackets because of that sign. That's the proper way of writing it. 2 times 1 on the bottom because it's 2a. Right, so we've got a little bit of cleaning up to do now. So minus 2 is plus 2. Plus or minus the square root of minus 2 squared is 4. Minus 2 times minus 2 is 4. Minus. But I'm going to be multiplying a minus by another minus, so this is going to end up positive, thankfully. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to solve it. 4 times 15 is 60, which is good news, over 2. So we've got 2 plus or minus the square root of 64. Now I happen to know that that's 8, because 8 eighths are 64, over 2. So, and remember, this is going to give us 2 solutions, so now we're going to go to each individual solution. So one solution is when this is positive, equals 10 over 2 equals 5, and the other solution is when that is negative, 2 minus 8 over 2 equals, and 2 minus 8 is minus 6. It's like the temperature in Moscow is 2 degrees, it drops by 8 degrees, it is now minus 6 degrees. So there's our first solution, there's our second solution. Remember, always 2 solutions to a quadratic. So we'll do one more just like this with less neat answers, because in real life quadratic equations tend to have messy answers. And I've just made this up, so I think it will give a messy answer. Alright, so I've already worked out what A, B and C are, so here we go, straight to the quadratic formula. So you remember that it's let me write it out one more time. B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So minus B. B is minus already, so we have to be careful. That's going to become a positive. Plus or minus B squared, which is minus 5 squared, minus 4 times the value of A, which is 3, times the value of C, which is minus 8, all over 2 times A, which is 3. So we'll just tidy it up a little bit, and then we'll just slap it into a calculator. So minus 5 is plus 5, plus minus 5 squared is 25. So minus 5 times minus 5 is also 25. Now I'm going to have minus times minus here, so I know I'm going to end up with a positive number. So it's going to be 12 times 8. I know 12 eighths is 96. 6. All over 6. Yeah, normally we'd put this straight into a calculator, but I just want to show you. Right, so grabbing our calculator, and you should know that there is a button on the calculator marked like that. Sometimes that's covered in. And that means it allows you to enter straight into a fraction. It's really useful in this. Don't try and do this without using that button, is my advice. So, okay. So let's put in the numbers. So we start with 5 plus, remember it's plus or minus, we start with the plus, square root 25 plus 96. Now, around the middle of the calculator, you have some arrow keys, and we're going to use the down arrow to get down and put the 6 on the bottom. And then equals gives us our first solution, 8 over 3. Now we use these arrow keys and go backwards. So I'm going to go back over all the numbers I put in, and I'm going to get back to that first plus. I'm going to push the delete key, get rid of that, and put in the minus. Press equal, and there's my other solution, minus 1. And here are some practice questions. And coming up after this are the solutions. So good luck.